धवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रान्विता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्करप्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा पूजिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाढ्यापहा. We invoke Devi's grace, Gurudev's blessings, as we inaugurate the Woman Seeker. The Woman Seeker. How did this project come about? Once we were sitting in a Devi group session and we were discussing about the lives of saints and sages. Many had heard about male saints and they asked, well, what about women saints? Do we have any in our tradition? And I said, yes, of course we do. But deep inside, I knew that I could only count them in one hand. I also didn't know much about them. So we all sat together and thought, why don't we do a research? Do a research on all of the women saints in Bharat from different areas. North, south, west, east, central, northeast, from different time periods, from 6th century to even 20th century, from different walks of life, those who were householders, those who were mystics, those who were ascetics, rishikas, bhaktas. Some were orphans, some were widows, some were just totally reveling in this divine truth. Some were sharing this message with everybody. Some wrote epics. And when we saw this variety, we were so amazed to see Devi herself as if coming to speak to us, telling us, I am here, and this is who I am. And so it's as if Devi herself started this project, telling us where to go, what to do, who to meet. From the far corner of Kashmir to Assam, we were able to find people who spoke the language and who could really talk to us about the saints of their places. Therefore, this all started with Devi's grace. And when I also thought about my personal life, my personal reflection on this journey, I also wondered, how is it like to be enlightened, to walk this path of enlightenment as a woman, in the body, the breath, and the being of a woman? I wasn't anymore seeking the truth, but I was seeking how this truth could actually be manifest. I was seeking a picture, an image, a role model, a figure of this truth that I could look up to as a woman. And as I was reading the lives of these Devis, I saw everything that I needed to see. This brings me to reflect on the question that Arjuna asked Sri Krishna on the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Sthita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava sthita dih kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta kim. Arjuna asked Sri Krishna, Sthita prajnasya ka bhasha. How do we describe the life of an enlightened being, the life of the person who has steady wisdom? Samadhisthasya keshava, the one who is in the state of samadhi. Sthita dih kim prabhasheta. How do they actually speak? Kimasita, how do they sit? vrajetakim, and how do they move? How do they walk in life? This is what I wondered. But I wondered about the sthita prajna in a woman. And I got all my answers. The first question, how is a sthita prajna described? I think about the life of Anandamayi Ma, who was in East Bengal, now Bangladesh, in the 19th century. Anandamayi Ma was such a divine, and is still such a divine influence in my life because she was so natural. When she was born, she said that she already knew this truth. She already knew that she was beyond this body, beyond this mind, and that everything was a play in her own being. In fact, at some point in her life, she took on the role of a sadhaka as a leela, wherein asanas and mantras flowed out from her. And she became a guru not only to various people, but to her own husband and to her parents, though she never wanted to be called guru. Many people saw her as Durga Devi herself. Many people saw her as a Jivan Mukta. Some saw her as a mother who they felt was so close to her heart. But in truth, Anandamayi Ma was all this and beyond. This is how she is described. Her greatest miracle is that she gives to everyone exactly what they need at the precise moment of their life. Each one gets her satisfaction and blessings in proportion not only to their sincerity and devotion, but in their capacity to receive at that time. Everyone who came to her felt like they got exactly what they needed at that point in time, without even describing much about their life. People who were in Advaita Vedanta felt like she was walking the path of Advaita Vedanta. People who were bhaktas felt like she was the ultimate bhakta. People of different faiths felt that she knew what their faith was talking about. She's also described as the unofficial sovereign of an unlimited empire of Ananda, a sovereign who neither rules nor reigns, but remains enthroned in the hearts of millions. So she never tried to rule over anyone, reign over anyone, but just because of her persona, she was enthroned in the hearts of millions of people. Paramahamsa Yogananda ji said, when he met Anandamayi Ma, I have met so many men of God realization, but never such an exalted woman saint. People saw her so spontaneous, so detached, so free. And when I also went to visit her, I felt like she had a special message for me. I thought that this is true for everyone, but what did I feel about her? Not that I'm in any authority to say so, but I just wanted to share what she gave to me. I went to the Kankal ashram in Bharat because I was so inspired by her life, and I stayed there. And in the ashram, there's a garden where Ma's image is there, and there's a museum on the left. And during the evening times, I would go for a walk there because the streets were quite crowded. And my path was a wide one because I wanted to get so many steps. Being the New Yorker I am, I wanted to get my steps for the day. And I took the path where I was going by the museum and then to Ma and then around. But whenever I would walk by the museum, it had glass doors and I could see a reflection of myself. And as I was walking, somebody there told me, don't walk this wide path, just walk straight to Ma and around. He told me, just walk this way. And I said, sure, I'll do that. And when I did that, I stopped seeing my reflection. And all I could see was Ma. And I felt like that was her message for me, to stop seeing my reflection, stop thinking about me, that life should just be about Ma, who is the embodiment of truth. When we look at Ma, we see Atma, the self. And so that was my own experience with Anandamayi Ma. So how are these beings described? Those who are enlightened? They are ever free. They don't make a name for themselves. They don't consider themselves to be this or that. They are just ever free and open and accepting of people who come to them. And their focus is never on themselves, on how they look and how they stand, etc. Their full attention is on the one who's in front of them, and they give their hearts out to them. The next person that I want to talk about is Sthitaprajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava stitadihkim prabhashita. How does an enlightened being speak? So now we come to Lal Ded, also known as Laleshwari. She was from the 14th century of Kashmir. And at a young age, Lal Ded, she left her home. She was married, but certain things didn't go well. And because she was trained in Kashmiri Shaivism under her guru, she was trained in yogic practices, she felt like now it was time to move on. And so she did. She left as a wandering ascetic, unclothed. And all she had with her was her knowledge. And her knowledge was not something that was just heard. I'm going to read you a beautiful vak. A vak is a saying by Lal Ded. She says, I practiced what I read and learnt what was not taught. From its jungle abode, I brought the lion down as a jackal would, meaning from the pleasures of the world, I pulled my mind away. I practiced what I preached and attained the goal. She says, I practiced what I read and learned what was not taught. That was the most beautiful thing to hear, to see, because she listened, but she also used her own experience. She also used her own mind to go within. We often listen to the scriptures and think that, why isn't it going inside of me? Why am I not changing? Why have I not grown? It's because we haven't really turned within and seen how we can implement those scriptures in our lives. In the life of Lal Ded, it was so clear that her wandering was a tapasya. Her life was so simple in that whatever she found, she ate. Wherever she could find a place to stay, she stayed. And because of her practice of austerity and simplicity and her deep meditation, all that came out from her was like a scripture. It was a scripture. When I read her Vaks, I am reminded of our Upanishads, exactly echoing their essence. And Lal Ded wandered around Kashmir so free, and as she was speaking, it was so natural. She didn't need any practice, any rehearsal. It was so natural to her. It was just an outpouring of her being. And did she care about who was listening? No. Were her Vaks being written down? She didn't bother. How many people are following her? Who's recording her? None of this preoccupation was on her mind. She was just so natural and free. If people listened, they listened. If people took it down, they took it down. But the most important thing to her was that she heard her own message. She heard her own message, And unknowingly, she laid the foundation for Kashmiri literature. Because before Lal Ded, works were mainly in Sanskrit. And now it was so accessible to the modern day being. And it spoke their language. She used such simple examples in life which showed that she really understood what she was speaking about. So, Stita Dih Kim Prabhasheta, how do they speak? They speak out of their own lived experience of the truth. So natural, so free, unperturbed, whether people are listening, recording, following, whether they're even understanding. She just spoke as her own nature. And every word was a scripture. Stita Dih Kim Prabhasheta. Kim Asita. How do they sit? Now I bring to our minds the life of Mata Rupa Bhavani from 17th century in Kashmir. Her guru was Lal Ded and also her father. Mata Rupa Bhavani was such a divine being. Actually, her father used to worship Devi Sharika, which is a form of Devi. And as he worshipped her, she came to bless him. And he asked for a boon. The boon was, may you be born as my daughter. And so Mata Rupa Bhavani was born as his daughter. From a young age, she learned spiritual practices from her father. And as she grew older, she got married, she settled down, but eventually she also felt that she needed to be on her own. And Mata Rupa Bhavani set out on her own, and she built hermitages for herself. She built caves, places for her to live in. She would spend 12 and a half years in tapasya. I often wondered, we have many male ascetics who sit and meditate in caves, and we've heard of the likes of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi Ji, where he just sat and his nails grew and his hair grew and he's unperturbed. But I also wondered, do women ascetics, are they there, and do they also go in caves? And do they also sit and meditate so intensely? And when I read Mata Rupa Bhavani's life, wow, I was so shocked and surprisingly shocked and so joyful at the same time, because she sat so quietly, ever absorbed in the truth. And she didn't even want herself to be known. In these days where everybody wants to be so visible in everyone's face and recognized, here was a saint so quiet, so invisible, that people didn't even know she was there. One time, she was in one such place, on her own, and one of the village boys saw something quite unique. He saw that every day one of his cows would go up the hill and come down, every day at the same time. And so he decided to follow that cow. And when he went to follow that cow, what was that cow doing? That cow was giving milk to Mata Rupa Bhavani in her cup, and would stop right at the rim just when it was about to become full. And every day this cow was going to her, and she was patting this cow with so much love. This village boy thought that she must be some kind of extraordinary being, and he told everyone about her. And people began to recognize her. And she met with them. She blessed them, she helped them, she taught them. And when the crowd became too enormous, she left again. She left again to find an even deeper space for solitude. So Kim Asita, how do they sit? They sit like Mata Rupa Bhavani, ever absorbed in the truth and not caring Who's watching? Where is this person? What is this person doing? Just so into the self. In an age where we're trying to hoard so much. We have so much stuff that we need storage units to put more stuff which we don't use. I think of the life of Mata Rupa Bhavani, where she could just pick up and sit and leave. How beautiful that must have been. How do they sit? They sit absorbed in Brahman. Totally absorbed in Brahman. Vrajeta kim. How does an enlightened being move about the world? Certainly not all can be wandering ascetics or meditating in caves, or not all can be world-renowned like Anandamayi Ma. How do they move about in the world? I am reminded of our own Swamini Saradapriyananda ji, a 20th century from Andhra Pradesh. She is from our own Chinmaya Mission, a great disciple of Puja Guru Dev. When I think about her life, she spent her first years of her life growing up under the care of her parents, developing herself to be such a strong and noble, pious, disciplined young woman, being in the field of law, being in the field of social justice. And yet she found that this wasn't enough for her. And when she met Gurudev, her life changed. She went through the Vedanta course, and later on as a Swamini, she spent her life in service of all. She spent her life building orphanages or schools, temples, sacred spaces of learning. She spent her life writing commentaries on the Upanishads, publishing magazines or journals so that the people would have access to this knowledge of Vedanta. She spoke in Telugu, in English. She wanted to bring the scriptures in and through Andhra Pradesh. She even conducted a Vedanta course in Telugu and English. And in and through all of this activity, she kept her life so austere, so simple. And every single thing was for the welfare of others. Even in her last months, when she was very ill, what was she doing? Her body was in so much pain, but yet she didn't identify with it at all. She said the biggest disease is forgetting God. That's the disease. She said, you think Amma has a disease? She doesn't have a disease. Forgetting God is a disease. Whoever forgets God is diseased. And moreover, in those months of her illness, she was translating Gurudev's commentary of the Bhagavad Gita in Telugu. This is what she was doing. Every step of hers was a blessing, and she still continues to inspire us today. So, I got my answer. There is not one woman or a few women. There are many women all over not only Bharat, but in the entire world, in many walks of life, from different time periods, who have journeyed to enlightenment and have become enlightened. And what do people say about them? That they are the epitome of divinity, of simplicity, of purity. How do they speak? They speak the scripture, so spontaneous and free, not caring about who is listening, who is recording, who is following. How do they sit? They sit still, absorbed in the truth, so deep and so in tune with it. How do they walk? They serve humanity in all various ways, with their every step being a blessing in life. I got my answer, and it is my sincere hope that every woman seeker gets their answer through this book. That all of us now find role models that we can look up to walk this path. All the women in these books are saints, but we call the book, not them, we call the book the Woman Seeker because we wanted to capture their lives from a seeker to saint. And we wanted those lives to speak to our lives. So in every Devi that's in the book, we'll find a section on her story, a section on her teachings, and a contemplation question that will leave us to think deeply about how to transform into a Devi ourselves. What happens from here on? I don't know. But the only thing I know is this. Because of the inspiration of these Devis and our entire Guru Parampara, I am inspired to walk this path to enlightenment faster, stronger, further than ever before. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.